It's a smoky day across the Bluegrass as smoke from the Canadian wildfires is moving in and causing air quality issues. Plus, a ring of fire weather pattern is taking shape, and that could bring us strong to severe storms by the end of the week. Welcome to the Bluegrass Weather Report for Wednesday, June 28th, 2023. I am meteorologist Shane Smith, and right now most of Kentucky is nice and dry. There's a few showers out in western Kentucky as we record this on Wednesday afternoon. High pressure controlling our weather right now. You can see some showers and storms back across portions of southern to central Illinois. And that's about it. Notice high pressure keeping us nice and dry, and that's going to be the case for about 24 more hours. But the big story today locally is the smoke. And that smoke, if you're looking outside, you're seeing it pretty well. But we go to the visible satellite picture and it's not showing up. And that's because that smoke is really hard for the satellites to detect. We can take a closer look at a specialized model that looks at near field infrared imagery, or infrared radiation, I should say, to try to see that. And you can see it a little bit showing up on this satellite. We can zoom in over Kentucky and you can see a little bit of that smoke is showing up. But the best way to see it, honestly, is just to check out some of our weather cameras. This one from the Kentucky Department of Transportation. This is up around Ironworks Pike in Lexington. And yeah, you can see it is just a hazy day across the Commonwealth, and it's due to that smoke from those Canadian wildfires. You know, as we go back to that satellite imagery, you can see the wind is blowing in from the northwest, and all that smoke's just getting drugged down into the Commonwealth. And that's going to be the case for the next couple of hours and probably the rest of the day. We're seeing a very strong northwesterly flow, bringing that wind in. But that's not the only thing going on with our weather. In fact, off to the southwest, we've got heat building. A lot of heat. In fact, here's the high temperature forecast for later today. And you're going to notice down into Texas, portions of the Lone Star State may be pushing 110 degrees. Yikes. That is some major heat. And notice how Kentucky is on the periphery of that heat core that's centered back into portions of Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. That heat core is forming what we call a ring of fire. And what can happen on the periphery of a ring of fire is that you can get showers and thunderstorms developing. I'm going to draw a little ring around this core, and you'll see on the edge of that heat, especially on the northwest, coming off from the northwest, you'll see showers and storms develop and kind of ride along the periphery of that heat ridge, almost like just a stationary front or a cold front. It forms like almost an artificial frontal boundary due to the core of that heat. Well, this setup can be very tricky when it comes to forecasting, because it can cause showers and thunderstorms to go up unexpectedly and ride the periphery of that heat. And this is a really common setup we see with a weather phenomenon known as derechos. Derechos, those long-lived wind-driven thunderstorms. I remember a very prominent one we had back in portions of far eastern Kentucky and over to our neighbors in the west, or in the east, over in West Virginia back in 2012. Those derechos can be big-time wind producers, and we have the potential of seeing some big-time storms with very strong winds in this kind of a setup. So let's see what the models say. And I want to go ahead and put a disclaimer on this. The synoptic models really struggle in this kind of a setup. So the GFS, Canadian, the European, not going to be your best bets here. They're going to see the overall pattern, but trying to nail the individual storms going to be really hard. Same story for our mesoscale models, although they do a little bit better job once the storms actually initiate of being able to track them. And this is what the North American mesoscale model is showing, the NAM. It's showing a big cluster of thunderstorms rolling into western Kentucky Thursday afternoon, and then another one potentially developing across central and eastern Kentucky Friday morning. Now, I'm not going to take that as gospel, but just know the potential is certainly there. Let's take a much closer look as we go to the state view. And on Thursday, right around lunchtime, showing very strong complex of storms from Louisville back to Evansville, pushing down, and it'll be into Tennessee by about 2 o'clock Central Time. And then another line of storms developing overnight Friday. Now, once again, don't take those timings as gospel. Just know any storms that do go up over the next couple of days could be on the strong to severe side and could have some really intense winds. Check out the wind fields off the storm coming through southern Illinois Thursday morning. 70, 80 mile per hour wind gusts forecasted off the NAM model for that line of storms. Now, it's showing it die down as it moves into western Kentucky, and hopefully that'll be the case. But then watch this, another strong cluster of storms. Thursday night, southern Illinois heading towards Kentucky. 90 mile per hour wind gusts showing up. That is not anything you want to mess with. In fact, very similar to what we saw just a couple of nights ago for our friends up in Madison County near Richmond, where they recorded 110 mile per hour wind gust from that macro burst that happened. So those same type of winds could be possible in this kind of a setup. In fact, Storm Prediction Center already has us under a slight risk for most of the state tomorrow, with damaging winds being the main threat. You know, it's showing a 15% chance of damaging winds from about I-75 west over towards Owensboro, and then another slight risk on Friday. Once again, the overall pattern looking incredibly stormy. Don't take the models verbatim right now. Just keep an eye out to the northwest and watch those storms come in. And any of them that do develop could be on the strong side. So the smoke today, how to deal with the smoke. If you've got a respirator or a mask, that's a good thing to have if you're going to be out for an extended period of time and you are sensitive to allergens or have lung damage. You want to stay indoors. Try to avoid being out, and make sure your filter on your air intake is clean. Definitely want to filter out as much of that smoke as possible. Also, if that is not an option, maybe look at traveling a little bit further south for the next couple of days to get out of that smoke, because I know asthma and lung issues are something you don't want to mess around with when the smoke is this heavy and going to be this prolonged. Now, for the thunderstorms, make sure to have a way to get warnings Thursday and Friday. Multiple apps. Weather radio, you can find a link to a good weather radio down below if you don't have one. Put a rush order on that and get that. And I will try to send out warnings as possible, but always follow your local weather service office. All three of the offices across the state do a good job of getting those warnings out, especially on Twitter. Good way to follow them. You can set up an alert notification anytime they post information. So stay weather aware as we deal with the smoke and the storms, and I'll have updates as necessary. If you like the content here, be sure to like and subscribe, and keep checking back for more weather information here on the Bluegrass Weather Report.